Before we begin, if you've ever looked at someone you love and quietly wondered whether you're still truly seen, or just familiar, then subscribe to this channel. Because here, we don't just tell relationship stories. We explore the emotions people hide behind smiles, routines, and everyday conversations. And tonight's story starts with a question so simple, yet so dangerous. It changed everything between two people who thought they already knew each other. It didn't begin with betrayal. There was no screaming, no slam doors, no dramatic confession waiting to explode in the middle of the night. In fact, if you had walked past our house that evening, you would have thought everything inside was perfectly normal. The kitchen light was on. Soft jazz played quietly from a speaker near the window. Rain tapped gently against the glass. And my husband sat across from me stirring his tea like he had done 1,000 times before. Slow circles, calm hands, familiar movements. The kind of small, ordinary moment people mistake for peace. But sometimes the quietest moments carry the heaviest truths. I remember watching him that night more carefully than usual. Not his face. Faces are trained. People learn how to control them. They know when to smile, when to nod, when to pretend everything is fine. But hands are honest. Hands hesitate. Hands reveal things words try to hide. And his hands looked comfortable. Too comfortable. Like a man sitting inside a life he no longer questioned. For years, I thought comfort was the goal. Isn't that what everyone says? Find someone safe. Someone loyal. Someone steady. Build routines together. Build a home together. Build a life that becomes predictable enough to trust. And we had done exactly that. We had survived hard years together. Job stress, financial pressure, family drama, late-night arguments that dissolved into exhausted apologies, inside jokes no one else understood, forgotten anniversaries followed by guilty flowers the next morning, movie nights where neither of us paid attention to the film because we were too busy making sarcastic comments to each other. We weren't unhappy. At least, not obviously. That was the strange part. Nothing was broken. But something was asleep. And once I noticed it, I couldn't unfeel it. I've been thinking, I finally said. The words sounded lighter than they felt. He smiled immediately, almost automatically. That smile. The one that used to calm me instantly. Well, he said softly, that usually means trouble. I laughed. Too quickly. Because this time it wasn't harmless. This time, my thoughts had weight. Real weight. The kind that changes a room after it's spoken out loud. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere far away. He lifted his mug casually, taking another sip. Meanwhile, my heart felt like it was beating loud enough to shake the table. I want to ask you something, I said carefully. But I need you to actually hear me before you answer. That changed his expression. Not dramatically. Just enough. The smile faded slightly. The spoon stopped moving. And for the first time that night, he looked directly at me with complete attention. Not distracted. Not half listening. Fully present. I'm listening, he said. I took a breath, but it didn't help. The air suddenly felt heavier than before. I began slowly, we've become too comfortable. His eyebrows pulled together slightly. Comfortable is bad now? No, I said quickly. Not bad. Just dangerous if we stop noticing each other. He leaned back in his chair. I could see him trying to understand where this conversation was going. And honestly, I wasn't completely sure myself. That was the terrifying part. I only knew there was something growing quietly inside me for months. Something restless. Something impossible to explain without sounding ungrateful. Because how do you tell someone who loves you that you're afraid your relationship has become automatic? How do you explain the loneliness of being deeply cared for, but no longer deeply seen? We still talk, he said carefully. I know. We spend time together. I know. So what's this really about? I looked down at the table for a second. The wood was scratched near the edges from years of use. Tiny marks collected over time. Proof that even strong things wear down slowly. That thought stayed with me. It's about us forgetting we had a choice, I whispered. He didn't answer immediately. Rain continued tapping against the windows. Somewhere in the house, the refrigerator hummed softly. Normal sounds. Ordinary sounds. But suddenly they felt incredibly far away. I chose you, he finally said. You did. I replied softly. Years ago. His jaw tightened just slightly. And that's not enough? The question hurt because I knew he meant it sincerely. This wasn't a cruel man. This wasn't a loveless marriage. That would have been easier. No, this was much more complicated. This was two good people slowly disappearing into routine without realizing it. I think people assume love stays alive on its own, I said quietly. Like once you build it, it just continues automatically. And you don't think that's true? No, I admitted. I think love can survive for years while the people inside it slowly stop waking up emotionally. He stared at me for a long moment after that. Not angry, not defensive, just thoughtful, which somehow made this conversation even harder. Because if he had yelled, I could have protected myself. If he had dismissed me, I could have shut down. But his silence forced honesty. What are you asking for exactly? He said at last. That question sat between us heavily. Because I had rehearsed this conversation in my mind 100 different ways, and none of them prepared me for how vulnerable the truth sounded once spoken aloud. I want us to stop hiding behind routine, I said. We're not hiding. Aren't we? He looked away for the first time, just briefly, but I noticed. People always notice more when they're afraid. I think, I continued carefully, there are thoughts we don't say anymore, questions we avoid, truths we soften before they leave our mouths. He exhaled slowly through his nose. That's marriage, he said. No. Irraplia quietly. That's fear. The room went still. Not dramatic stillness. Not cinematic tension. Just that subtle emotional shift when both people realize a conversation has crossed into dangerous territory. He rubbed his thumb against the side of his mug absent-mindedly. You're making it sound like we're pretending. Aren't we pretending a little? I asked. His eyes returned to mine immediately. In what way? I hesitated. Because this was the moment. The point where conversations stop being theoretical. The point where they become personal. Painfully personal. I think sometimes, I said slowly, we stay because leaving sounds exhausting, not because we're still actively choosing each other every day. He blinked once. Then again. Like he wasn't expecting that sentence to land the way it did. That's what you think this is? He asked quietly. No, I said quickly. Not entirely. Then what? I swallowed hard. And suddenly, the question I had been carrying for months rose to the surface before I could stop it. If we met today, I whispered, with no history, no marriage, no memories, would we still fall in love? The silence afterward felt endless. He stared at me. Completely still. And for a second, I wished I could pull the words back into my mouth. Not because they were dishonest, but because honest questions can be terrifying once they exist in the open. That's not fair, he finally said. I know. No, seriously, he continued, sitting forward now. How am I supposed to answer that? Honestly. And if the answer hurts you? I looked at him carefully. Then at least it's real. Another silence. Longer this time. He looked down at the table. And I realized something that scared me even more than his answer. He was actually thinking about it. Not dismissing it. Not instantly reassuring me. Thinking. Which meant some part of him understood exactly why I was asking. I don't know, he admitted quietly. The words hit me softer than a lie would have. Because uncertainty carries its own kind of grief. He didn't say no. But he didn't say yes either. And somehow that space between the two answers felt enormous.